Hi, welcome to my video on the standard form of a parabola, part 4. Change standard form to vertex form by completing the square. Express each as y equals a bracket x minus h all squared plus k. And we're going to do this by completing the square. So what we do first is that I separate the x squared plus 6x, move the 1 away, and then I'm going to complete the square on 6. So 6 divided by 2 squared is 3 squared, which is 9. So this is a perfect square trinomial called 9. Because this is a 1, I put 9 into this right side, so I have to balance it out by going 1 times 9, which is 9, and I put a negative 9 to balance it. So when I factor x squared plus 6x plus 9, it becomes x. A half of plus 6 is a plus 3 squared minus 8. And that's expressing it as ax squared, a times x squared minus h all a bracket x minus h all squared plus k. And let's do b. Again, I separate the x squared 4x, move the negative 3 outside. Then I complete the square to make this a perfect square trinomial. So negative 4 divided by 2 squared, negative 2 squared is 4. So the inside becomes a 4. That makes this a perfect square trinomial. But to balance it, because I put 4 there, so 1 times 4 is 4, so minus 4 would balance it. And this perfect square trinomial factored is x. Half of minus 4 is a minus 2 all squared, minus 7. And c, we have to separate the 2x squared plus 4x and separate the 5. Now notice, when we complete the square, we have a 1 here. We have a 1 here. So I have to have a 1 x squared. So I will factor out the 2. So 2x squared divided by 2 is x squared. Plus 4x divided by 2 is plus 2x. So now I have a is 1x. So I want a 1 here. Now I have to complete the square. So I will take 2 divided by 2 and squared. So 1 squared is 1. So that means I have to have a plus 1 here to complete the square. But because I put a 1 here, I made it on balance. So 2 times 1 is 2. So that means I put a negative 2 to balance it out, because if I multiply 2 times x squared, I get 2x squared. 2 times 2x is 4x. So notice this 2 times 1 is not up in this step. So to balance it, I do its opposite, which is a negative 2. And we factor. Half of plus 2 is a plus 1 squared plus 3. So I have written in the vertex form. And another one, so we have to, again, separate the x's and the constant. So I'll complete the square by, I have to complete the square. Before I do that, I have to remove the negative 3, because I have to make a 1. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1x squared. 12 divided by negative 3 is a negative 4x. So I have it factored. I have the coefficient of a here in front of the x squared 1. That's what I want when I complete the square. So now I'll take the negative 4, divide by 2 and square it. So that's negative 2 squared, so that's a 4. So when I put a 4 on here, I have a perfect square trinomial. But notice now, when I put a 4 here, I made it on balance, so I have to go negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, and to offset it, I have to go plus 12. So we factor, and we get an x. This is perfect square trinomial, so it's an x half of minus 4 is a minus 2 squared plus 5. And again, if you work the other way, if you squared this out, multiply by negative 3 and add 5, you'll come back to this standard form. So this is the vertex form. So we change it to the vertex form. And the vertex form y equals a times x minus h all squared plus k. And turn it over, and we'll find the vertex of this parabola. Now I'm going to find the vertex by completing the square. There is another way to do it, but we're doing it in later videos, so I'm going to work it out by completing the square. So I got to find the vertex. So that means I got to write it in vertex form. So we group the x's, and we move the minus 3 outside. So we have to take negative 10, divide by 2, and square it. Negative 5 squared is 25. So I put a 25 there, and this is a perfect square trinomial, so that's an x. Half of negative 10 is a negative 5, so x minus 5 all squared is that trinomial minus 3. So the vertex of this is in standard form, so the vertex, this is the vertex form, so the vertex is the opposite of what's in the bracket, which is 5 and a negative 3. And note, when we put 5, if we sub 5 into place of x, this becomes 0. 0 squared is 0. So when x is 5, y becomes negative 3, and that's the vertex. B, we have to separate the x's away from the constant, and I need a 1, so I have to remove the negative. Negative 1 or negative. So negative divided by negative is a positive. Positive, that's an x there. Positive 14 divided by negative 1 is negative 14. So notice I have the negative taken out, and the plus 1 is moved over. So now I'm going to complete the square. So negative 14 divided by 2 squared is negative 7 squared, which is 49. So I'll put a plus 49 here. That makes this trinomial a perfect square. So this is the negative outside of factor. This perfect square trinomial is x. Half of negative 14 is a negative 7. So this perfect square trinomial is made up of x minus 7 times x minus 7. And we forgot to balance it. When I put the 49 here, I forgot to multiply the negative 1 by 49 to get negative 49. So I forgot to put a plus 49 there to offset. When you put this perfect square in here, you have to multiply this number by this perfect square and do its opposite here to keep it balanced. So that's then becomes a plus 50. And the vertex is the opposite of minus 7, which is 7, comma 50. That's the x and the y, or the h and the k in your vertex. C, again, pause the video and see if you can work these out on your own. So let's separate the x's away from the negative 4. And we need an x squared to be 1, so we'll remove the 5, because the 5 is the GCF in 5 and 10. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, 10 divided by 5 is 2. So I have a 2, so 2 divided by 2 squared is the same as 1 squared, which is 1, so that's a plus 1. Now when I put the 1 here, I have to balance it. 5 times 1 is 5, so I need a negative 5 to balance it. Factor, and x squared is an x, half of plus 2 is a plus 1, and minus 9. So make sure when you put that there to make it, when you put this number here to make it a perfect square trinomial, you have to multiply these two and do its opposite. Because you're working on the same side of the equation, you go plus and minus the same number. And the vertex is the opposite of x plus 1, which is a minus 1. Opposite of plus 1 minus 1, minus 9. And we have another one to do. So we're going to, again, I separate the plus 7 away from the variables of x, away from the binomial here. And I'll remove the negative 2. Negative 2 is the GCF. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. And negative 6 divided by negative 2 is a plus 3. Again, we remove the negative 2 out of the first term because we want a 1. We want a to be 1. Now that's 3 is the middle term. So 3 divided by 2 squared is 9 over 4. I could use decimals, but I'm going to use the fraction. So that makes that a 9 over 4. A half of 3 is 3 over 2 squared. Now I got to multiply negative 2 by 9 over 4. Now here it was easy to multiply 5 by 1 and do its opposite. But here I got negative 2 times 9 over 4, so I'm going to show you the workings on the side here. So the 2 cancels, negative 1 and 2, so that gives me negative 9 over 2. So that's a negative 9 over 2. Again, negative 2 times 9 over 4, you could go negative 18 over 4 and reduces to negative 9 over 2. And because that's a negative 9 over 2, we got to, don't forget, we got to do its opposite. So that's a negative 9 over 2, so its opposite balances it out. And so, there we go. Half of 3 is 3 over 2, and we squared. Now we got to take 7 and add on 9 over 2. So 7 is the same as 14 over 2 plus 9 over 2. So that makes it 23 over 2. Notice 7 is a common denominator of over 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 7 is 14. So 14 over 2 is 7. Common denominator is 2, so we add 23. So that makes the vertex of this parabola negative 3 over 2, because we've got to do the opposite of the plus 3 over 2, and 23 over 2. So the vertex is negative 3 over 2, 23 over 2. So that's changing the standard form to vertex form by completing the square. Hopefully you understand what we're doing. We did very similar to that when we solved the equation by completing the square, but when we're solving, we balance each side. Okay. And if you like my video, click the like button, subscribe button, and notification bell. Visit my website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. And that's the content that's on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.